Screen is visible, right, ma'am?
Visible. Yeah. Please continue.
Yes. A very good morning to all the participants and the chief and our session resource person, Dr. Trivedi CL. A very warm welcome to session 13, Dr. Trivedi CL. I would like to introduce Dr. Trivedi CL, Professor, ECE Department and Coordinator of FTP, what is currently going on, that is Quantum and Photonics. So welcome once again, ma'am. Dr. Trivedi CL.
Thank
you. Dr. Trivedi CL, born in Ballari, Karnataka on 26 July 1979. She received a BE degree in Electronics and Communication from VEC Ballari, Gulbarga University in 2001 and MTech in National Institute of Engineering, Mysore and a VTU, Belgaum in 2012. She has received a PhD degree in Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, Malad College of Engineering and a VTU, Belgaum in 2020. In 2003, she joined the Department of Electronics Communication Engineering, Malad College of Engineering as an assistant professor to till date. Her current research interests include elastic optical networks, photonic sensors, MEMS, slice optical networks, quantum computing, etc. She is an active member of IEEE, member of IEEE Communication Society and ExCom member of IEEE Photonics Society. Advisor for IEEE Communication and Photonics Joint Societies Student Branch MCE Chapter. IEEE Branch Mentor for IEEE MCE Student Branch, MCE ASCEND, and a life member of IST. She volunteered as newsletter editor in IEEE ComSAC Bangalore Chapter and currently volunteering for newsletter editor for IEEE Photonics Society Bangalore Chapter. She has published more than 40 papers in international, national conferences and journals. She has conducted more than 10 workshops, FTPs in the college and coordinated technical talks in the department. Recipient of Best Project Guided Award in 2016 in Malad College of Engineering. She has served as Academic Council member in MCE ASCEND. She was session chair for Enigma 2013 in the college, reviewer for conferences and journals like Optical Engineering, IEEE Connect, vSpice 2020, IEEE Discover, IEEE Mysuru Conference 2021, ICMNWC 2021. She was a judge for Toy Kathan 2021 organized by Ministry of Education, Women and Child Development, MSME, Information and Broadcasting. So this is about our FTP coordinator and professor, Dr. CL Trivedi. Welcome back, ma'am. Please take over the session.
Thank you, Professor Purnima, for such a wonderful introduction of mine.
Thank you so much.
I would like to share my PPTs. Is it visible, madam?
Yes, one second. Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Are the slides changing?
Yes, ma'am, it's changing. It's going well.
Yeah, okay, thank you, madam. I'll take over the session now. So I'll just stop my video here because if the video is there, then the slides changing will not be a little bit difficult to me, right? So thank you, Purnima madam, for such a wonderful introduction of mine. So today is the last day of our FDP on quantum and photonics. So on today's session, I had taken this topic in elastic optical networks. So I wanted to introduce this elastic optical networks to the maximum people itself here, because if anyone is interested in doing their research in this area, so they could come forward and do their research here. So like in yesterday's session, Rajni madam has just taken in microwave photonics here. So she also told, right, there are plenty of opportunities that are present in this area. They could come and explore and use it for their research work itself here. And many young researchers who have been in the in this, if they're interested to do their research in this area, so they could come forward, right? They could come forward here and try to explore new things here and try to work it here. So there are plenty of problems available in optical domain itself here. So in that domain, they can work and for motivating, right? For motivating such type of young researchers and the already completed researchers here who are already done their PhD. So they could take this one as one research problems itself and give it to their students so that they can work more in this area here. So when the work is more in the area, then automatically what happens, the citations of the papers will also be increased itself here. So because many people will be working. So it's like a domain here where we can pick up few researchers here where they'll be working in this domain itself here. So I just wanted to introduce this area or domain to the participants itself. Yeah? So that's why I had taken this slice optical networks, which I had done my PhD in routing and spectrum allocation, that is RSA here. So RSA is nothing but routing and spectrum allocation here in slice networks. Slice networks is also called as the elastic optical networks here. So the other name is also given as FlexiGrid networks or the spectrum efficient elastic optical networks, which is also called as the slice network here. So I would like to go further So this is the overview of today's presentation here, right? I had introduced a little bit concepts of RWA because RSA, that is routing and spectrum allocation, is basically based on routing and wavelength assignment in case of WDM networks here. So little concepts of RWA and the work which I had carried out in RWA. And then coming to the RSA itself here. So a little bit the differences between these two work here between the RWA and RSA and how we had changed from the fixed grid networks to the FlexiGrid networks and the architecture of elastic optical networks and a little bit of algorithms which I had worked in RSA, that is routing and spectrum allocation. So this is the overview of my presentation on today's session itself here, right? So I will take a little bit the work in our routing and wavelength assignment here, the introduction here, and then go for the slice architecture here. So coming to the introduction part here, right? The Cisco, right? The Cisco systems in every now and then they try to publish the global traffic, right? They publish the white paper here. We also call it as a white paper here. So those white papers they will be publishing by the Cisco web systems is here. So when they publish this annual global traffic here, how much this traffic will be increased, and they also forecast here, right? For after 5 years, what would be the traffic here and what would be the need for that traffic? So how do you go for that? How is that demand is being satisfied here? So like that, we have this Cisco systems they are presenting here. So where they had presented in for next year, right? By 2022, the wired devices will be reduced to only 29% itself here, and wireless devices will go up to 71% here with respect to Wi-Fi and mobile devices here. So this is a forecast they had been given here. So why this forecast is given? Because of the lifestyle that is being chosen by all the people around here. So when due to the pandemic, we had shifted from virtual modes itself. We are shifted to the virtual modes here, and we activated more of the smart devices. Each system, each of the houses, they are expecting for the Wi-Fi systems here because for the online classes itself. So from landlines to smart devices, they had to go for they had to go for the basic necessary needs itself here. So for that one, what happens? The capacity, right? The capacity of the backbone networks has to be increased here. So due to that, the expectation that is being provided here is around 4.8 gigabyte per year. So every year, right? Every year we can expect that the traffic will be going on increasing up to 4.8 gigabyte. So where gigabyte is nothing but 10 to the power of 21 bytes itself here. So here this growth, right? This growth here. So it has been almost increased here with around 26% within this 17 to 22 itself here. But earlier it was estimated for the last 3 years, the estimation that was taken is around was only 24%. But now it has increased to 26%. So every year, right? Every year, if you take the compound annual growth here, so that has been increasing for the rate itself. So earlier it was 24, now it is 26. Hopefully by the next 3 years, we can expect for another 2% increase itself, or 3% increase itself here. So due to this growing, right, so each person will be having 2 to 3 more devices for himself here. So when he's having more number of devices, then automatically more number of IP networks has to be connected to those devices here. So the broadband speeds has to be increased here. So for such increase of this demand, for the demand of the annual traffic here, we have to go for this elastic optical networks here. And also one more here is the busy hour traffic here. The busy hour traffic, which has been increased here from 3.7% to 4.8% here for the last 3 years. So due to that, the demand for elastic optical networks has been increased here. So these are the different applications, right? If you see this figure here, so we can say the media, right? High definition channels, the media which has been supported itself. So if you take, they require the dedicated spectrum itself here. Very speed networks is required for that one, and high speed data that has to be transmitted, which will be around 400 Gbps and 1 terabits itself here. And the education, right? For the remote learning itself, online classes, for that one, also the demand has been increased here, and for the gaming also. So if we take for all these applications that are been existing for us, we have to go for the elastic optical networks, which satisfies and gets together without any noises introduced itself here. We can transfer from one channel to the other channels itself here. So for those applications, the demand for elastic optical networks has been brought into existence here. So you can see it here in this figure. I had taken from LeoX, right? So this one will give you how the demand has been increasing from 2013 to 2022 here. So if you see this figure here, this is the figure for single fiber capacitor, right? So what are the advances that has been taking place for the single optical fiber capacity here, which has been increased from 8 terabytes here from 2013 to 2022. So now for next year, we have to expect around 800 Gbps the data rate itself here, and 1 terabits capacity here. So the spectrum efficiency, right? If you see this spectrum efficiency, it has been increased from 2 to 6.4 here. So this value, right? This value of spectrum efficiency, if you see it here, so this value has been almost increased, right? Around bits per seconds per hertz. This value is increased here based on the devices that is been available. So why we are having this increase in the demand is because of the availability of the components itself here. So because of the core technologies here and the DSP algorithms that is been existing, and the lasers available here, the modulators, right? High speed modulators here, and the different modulation techniques that is been supported here, and high speed photo detectors. So all these technologies which has been increased and which has been changed from 2013 to 2022, these devices supported for the high speed communication itself here. So we are expecting, right? We are expecting here around more than 100 godbaud of optoelectronic devices itself here. So where around 1 terabits of data can be transmitted itself here. So these are the algorithms, right? Core ODSP algorithms here, which will be supporting for these optical fiber devices here. So if you see it here, right, the type of modulations, right? If you see the type of modulation here for 100 Gbps, the type of modulation that has been supporting here is nothing but the PDM, right? QPSK. So PDM QPSK transmission is modulation technique is been supporting for 2013 itself here. So where we'll be having a grid-based transmission of the data, so which will be spaced around 50 gigahertz spacing will be provided for each of the single wavelength here, so which will be fixed, and in that fixed data only we'll be able to transmit itself here. So here this optoelectronic devices and the modulation that is being provided here, right, from QPSK to QAM, right, and where we can double the data rate here from 100 Gbps to 200 Gbps here, and the spectrum efficiency can be increased to 4 bits per hertz, seconds per hertz itself here. So here that's why the capacity, right, the capacity of the single fiber is been increased to 16 terabits per second here. So like this, based on the modulation techniques, if you take it for 200 Gbps itself here, right, PDM QPSK can be used it here. PDM 16 QAM is being used, right? And if you take it for higher, right, if you go for higher modulation techniques here like QAM, so where we will be having 64 QAM itself here, so which will be able to support here, like in 2019, it was able to support for the higher data rate up to 400 Gbps itself here. So the receivers, right, the receivers that are being present here, they supported up to 7 nanometer of CMOS technology. So using that technology, we can be able to satisfy that demand itself here. So like this, we are expecting for the higher data rate for each of the single fiber capacity here. Now let me go for the next part here, that is routing and wavelength assignment. This was a little bit of introduction about why elastic optical networks has been brought into demand itself here. So here, when you go for this optical WDM networks here, we usually, when you go for this RWA, that is routing and wavelength assignment, we call this one, right? We call this one as in the optical networks, we call the end to end, right? When the end to end light path has been established here between the source to destination. So for that one, the circuit switch has been considered here, and the architecture, right? When you take the WDM architecture here, it consists of optical line terminals, line amplifiers, multiplexers and cross connects itself here. So if you take the architecture here, we can include that architecture either can be the measuring topology here, which supports the wavelength reuse and conversion here. So here, each of the transponders that is being used here, they try to convert the client signal to the suitable, right, to the suitable optical signal which has been required for the circuit here. So this is the network where you can see, right? So this is then wavelength routed optical network where you can observe here, where you'll be having the optical switches in between here. One example is being provided here. So here we are having optical access nodes, right? Just a second. Yeah. So you're having this access nodes here, right? These are the access nodes and these are the optical switches here, and these are the light paths that is being used here. Right. So if in each of the optical switches, if the wavelength converters are there, then automatically what happens from if I take this one as switch 1, node 1 to node 2, if I take node 1 to node 2, if I choose one wavelength lambda 1 here, then automatically I can choose lambda 2 from 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, provided we have the converters at each of the nodes here. If the converters are present, then we can choose different wavelengths itself. If the same wavelength is available at each of the node here, then automatically the same wavelength will be allocated for the light path itself here. So this is the one example provided here for the mesh network where we are having the optical access nodes here and optical switches. So here, when you go for this RWA problem, right, routing and wavelength assignment problem here, we have to see that two constraints are there here, right? Two constraints I had proposed here. One is the wavelength continuity and the one is the distinct wavelength itself here. So here, when you want to allocate for that light path, right, if I take this here, right, if I allocate this light path here, right, this wavelength path, light path that is been available here, it has to be continuously present between all the switches from source to destination here. So this should be same, right? So the same wavelength has to be allocated for all the links itself here, right? And this is the wavelength continuity. So from source to destination, the light path must have the same wavelength here in all the links along its path itself here. If you take the wavelength here, they should be distincted here. Now, if I take in the same fiber, right? If I take it in the same fiber here, so one lambda 1 is allotted here. So in that one, if I want to allocate another wavelength itself here, we cannot choose lambda 2 the same wavelength in the same fiber here, but you can choose lambda 3 here. So like this, you can go for the distinct wavelengths here and allocate for all the light paths in the same fiber itself here. So like this, we can choose, we have these constraints here. So these two constraints have been considered for RWA problem here. So this is the ILP formulation for RWA problem here. So what is the what would be this what we call this ILP formulation for RWA is nothing but we have to, right, we have to maximize the minimum number of wavelengths used here. So if you take here, right, if you take the light paths here, the light paths that is been requested for a given network, right, for a given network here, we have to maximize this light path requests here and try to use the minimum number of wavelengths here for the routes of the request that is being provided here. So here, if you want to obtain this blocking capacity for this one here, we have to see that it is been of the maximum grade of service here. So then then the number of the number of connections that has been established here. So that number of connections is being provided by this C0 itself here. So where we have to increase the number of connections here and minimize the number of wavelengths used itself here for the source to destination pair here. So if I take this, the value of high here, it is the nothing but the established connection pair here, right? Established connection pair for the offered load, right? And for the load arriving at each of the pair itself here. So here, if you take these two equations, right? If you take this these two equations here, so it will ensure that the established connections are more than the requested connections here. So more number of connections has to be present here, and the number of connections, right? The number of connections will be increased here based on that of the constraint that minimum, right? Minimum one connection should be established itself here. Now let me go for the conversion, wavelength conversion techniques used here. One is the no conversion technique, fixed conversion, limited and full conversions here. So if you take at each of the optical switch here, right? So if all the wavelengths are been available, lambda 1, lambda 2 and lambda 3, then there is no conversion between the in the optical switch here. So directly they will be the same wavelength will be allocated for the same path, light path that is being established itself here. Now suppose here, right? Suppose here if lambda 1 is available, then in the link, then lambda 1 will be allocated here. Suppose here, right? If lambda 2 for the switch node L2 itself, if we take it here, then the lambda 2 will be converted to lambda 3 and then transmitted, and for lambda 3 it will be converted to the lambda 2 and transmitted if the corresponding wavelength is being utilized here. So this is for the fixed conversion here, right? But in limited conversions, what happens? We'll be having for limited, right? This much only for lambda 3 to lambda 1 and lambda 1 to lambda 2 and lambda 2 to lambda 3, the conversions will be performed itself here. So here for different levels, right? For different levels here, different level of conversions will be used here. So if the conversions, right? If the conversions are limited here, then we can go for the limited conversion methods or fixed conversion methods. And if number of converters are available more here, then automatically we can go for the full conversion. So if each of the node is been available with the wavelength converter, then go for the full conversion method, convert from one lambda to any of the other wavelength that is being available and try to transmit here. So based on the availability of the resources here, the fixed conversion, limited conversion or full conversion techniques can be utilized itself here. So based on this one, we had been worked in two to three algorithms here on RW analysis here. So one is known as the conversion free routing method and converter shared wavelength routing method here, and the one is the dedicated routing algorithm here. So these four algorithms, right? And another one is the MSR, right? MRCR algorithm here. The four algorithm we had worked here, which is also known as the least cost algorithms here. So these are the cost effective least cost algorithms here. So if I take this one, right, from node 1, 2 and 6 here, one wavelength is allocated, right? And if I take the second wavelength is allocated using this path 1, 4, 3 and 6 here. And suppose if wavelength 3 is being allocated here, so already 3 to 4 is being utilized here, then automatically what happens, since the wavelength conversion, the wavelength availability is not there at node 4 here, then automatically the light path will be blocked itself. So this is for conversion free routing method here. But in case of converter shared wavelength routing method here, what happens, if you take this path here, wavelength 3 will be, it is being blocked here, right? It is being blocked here. Now suppose if we have a wavelength converter at node 4 here, then wavelength 1 will be converted to wavelength 2 between 4, 3 and 2, and it will be transmitted here. So since here already this wavelength is been utilized here, it is been utilized, we cannot use further here, then automatically we can go for the wavelength converter here. So where we are sharing it, right, where the wavelength converter is being shared here, and using the converter at node 2 and 4, we can convert that convert to the another wavelength here and transmit the data here using this light path here. So these are the two algorithms that is been used here. One is converter shared wavelength routing algorithm, and another is conversion free routing algorithm here. So these are the algorithms which we had taken here, right? So if it is available, try to allocate here. And one more thing here is we had taken two paths here for this one. One is the primary path, another one is the backup path here. So using Dijkstra algorithm, the shortest path is chosen for as the primary path here, and the next shortest path is been chosen as the backup path itself here. So if the wavelength is available, the primary route will be chosen. If the wavelength is not available in the primary route, then go for the backup path itself here. So like this, using this converter free routing algorithm here. So where there are no converters here, we try to allocate the wavelengths using this algorithm here. Same thing in converter shared here. So if suppose if the wavelengths is allocated in the if the wavelengths is been present here in the primary path, then allocate using the primary path here. And suppose if they are not present in primary path, then go for the backup path here. And if the in the backup path also, if it is not available, then go for the wavelength converters here. And other type of algorithm is nothing but the dedicated routing algorithm here. So where you will be having for each node, we'll be having the wavelength converters here. Full conversion will be there. Then automatically what happens, the blocking probability will be reduced for this type of algorithm here. And they'll be having a free algorithm at each of the link level as well as at the node level itself here. And one more algorithm is the MRCR algorithm, minimum resource consumption algorithm here. So where for this connection request, right, for the connection request that has been arrived for the source node here, for that one it will check for the primary path here and see whether the wavelength continuity has been maintained here. If the wavelength continuity has been existing here, then it will update that status here. And if it is not satisfied, then for all the primary checks, it will check for the continuity path in the backup paths here. And if it is not available, then go for the forward the request here and try to update the node itself here. So if this condition is 0, then what happens for both the paths here? So we'll check for the free wavelength in the primary path here and convert that one in the convert to the free wavelength that is being used here and try to allocate the first fit algorithm and try to transmit itself here. So this is the MRCR algorithm we had used here. And this is the assumptions what we had taken here. We had used shared by switch wavelength switch algorithm here, and path level protection is being used here. And if the connections are blocked, then it is due to the unavailability of the wavelength converters itself here. So using these assumptions, so these are the results what we got for the Eurocore network here, right? And using this one, you can see this wavelengths here, right? So at 7 Erlang traffic itself here, the blocking probability for dedicated routing algorithm is around 0.325 and 0.83 for CFR and CSWR algorithm itself here. So if you take for more number of wavelengths, almost for dedicated path, we have the blocking probability was almost reduced to 0 itself here. And we also tried for NSFNet topology here, right? Same thing. So almost, right, if the number of wavelengths is more than for the blocking probability, the blocking probability was almost 0 for dedicated path here because we have the dedicated converters. But if you use this algorithm, there is some sort of blocking probability that is been existing itself here. Right. So this is about the RW analysis, what I wanted to discuss in this first session itself here. Now let me go for the second portion, right? Second portion of this session here. So that is nothing but the modulation techniques, right? So when you go for this elastic optical networks here, right? So due to the advancement in the modulation techniques that is being present here, right? Due to that advancement, we are able to go for the elastic optical networks itself here. Now, if you take the types of modulations present here, right, we are having NRZ OOK, right, RZ DPSK and RZ DQPSK here, and coherent PM QPSK and PM QAM here. So this is the first one, right? NRZ OOK modulation technique here. It has been used to support the data rate of around 10 Gbps here. So for that data rate, this type of modulation you will be supporting here. And when you go for 40 Gbps, right? For 40 Gbps data rate itself here. So the type of modulation that is been supporting is nothing but RZ DPSK here. So this RZ DPSK and RZ DQPSK here. So it supports, right? It supports for 40 Gbps of data rate for the modulation technique here. But when you go for the last two, right, for the last coherent PM QPSK and PM QAM here, so this modulations is being supported for 100 Gbps data rate here. So here when you want to transmit the data here, the type of modulations used is for this one is for 10 and this two are for 40 Gbps here, and this one is for 100 Gbps support here. And when you go for further type of modulation like 64 QAM and further here coherent PM 64 QAM here, then automatically what happens, there are some impairments that will be arised in this modulation techniques here. So what are the impairments that will be arising here is, though this one, right, if you take this RZ SK and DQPSK here, they are low cost, right? They are low cost here for optical communication here, and they are also tolerant for few impairments like chromatic dispersions and non-linearities here. But when you use it for the long haul networks, what happens? We have it doesn't, right? It doesn't tolerate for two non-linearities here. One is the cross phase modulation, another one is the I think yeah, cross phase modulation is the one type of non-linearity that is it is been supporting here, right? And that will not be supported. That is not be supported by this coherent QPSK here. So when you want to see this non-linearities, how it has been not supporting here, so that one we had implemented using this WDM NetSoft here. So this WDM NetSoft software here, it has been provided as the BR analysis, right? So it provided as the BR analysis here, bitrate error, and what would be the optical signal to noise ratio. So that we are being able to get the results for using that WDM NetSoft here. So that is the result what we obtain here, right? For the different modulation techniques like RZ, DQPSK. For that one, for primer and backup path here. So optical signal to noise ratio. So and versus BR plot we had been taken here. So this one was published by in one of my conference paper here. So which is in the range of around 10 to the power of -2. We got it here, right? And this is for the backup path here. So here this BR analysis, right? BR versus OSR analysis was been obtained in case of in that software we obtained the physical layer impairments we had obtained here. And also we had taken, right? We have also taken for NSF topology. So where in that one we had taken for coherent PM 16 QAM and that analysis with respect to QPSK. So this must almost, right? It was increased here, right? The nonlinear, as we go for higher modulation techniques, the BR versus OSNR was been almost is been increased itself here. So this was the plots what we obtained for the different modulation techniques here. And this one we had obtained for Eurocore network topology here, right? We had analyzed for the primary paths here by taking source node here 4 as destination node 21 here by choosing the wavelength as 1508 nanometer here. So this is the Q factor, quality factor, and this is the BR here, right? And the OSNR value, and this is the BR versus OSNR for the Eurocore net topology we had taken, and also we had implemented for the different data rates here, right? So one is for 40 Gbps for the 2 modulation technique, and if you take it here, right, for NRZ OOK, the bitrate is supported is around 10 Gbps. So for that one we had implemented here for the same technology, and we also tried it for coherent PM QAM here for 100 Gbps here. And this is the analysis what we had getting. So as we go for higher modulation techniques, the value is been little bit more here. So this is about the implementation of the WDM using WDM net software here. So where we could get the results for physical layer impairments when you go for the different modulation techniques here. So this is about WDM networks. Now let me go quickly to the concept of fixed grid and flexi grid networks here. So here, this is the standard here, right? This is the standard for ITU standard grid here. So we have the C-band spectrum. So for this C-band spectrum range here, which is around, which is taken around 1530 to 1565 nanometers. So where the grid, right, where we have the frequency slots that has been available here, which is fixed here, right? So these in this fixed 50 gigahertz slots, if the traffic demand is completely utilizing this 50 gigahertz slots, then well and good. If the traffic demand is lesser than that, then automatically what happens? You'll be having an unused spectrum here, which leads to what? Which leads to wastage of the bandwidth itself here, right? So when you take this DWDM networks here, right, the wavelength spacing need not be only 50 gigahertz, but it can be either 25 gigahertz or 100 gigahertz or 200 gigahertz here. So here up to 100 gigahertz, it has been efficiently been supporting here. But when you want to go for the higher data rate here, then elastic optical networks is the only solution itself here. This is the one example here where the concept you can see between the fixed and flexi grid networks. So why the elastic optical networks has been more in the demand itself here. So if you see, this is for the fixed grid here, right, 50 gigahertz, and these are the demands that is been traffic demands that is been allocated here. So if you see it here, 10 Gbps, right? 10 Gbps it's been allocated, and 100 Gbps is allocated, 40 Gbps, but 400 Gbps has not been allocated in the fixed grid itself here. But if you take it here, right? So these are the wastage of the spectrum resources that is been allocated here. But if you go for the flexi grid, then what happens? See here, right? So this center frequency, right? The center frequency has been shifted here, right? So once it is shifted, then automatically what happens? We can try to allocate the frequency slots based on the availability here, right? So then automatically the wastage of the demand, wastage of the traffic demands is being reduced here, and it also supports for the higher data rates also here. So, right? So this is the concept between the fixed and flexi grid networks. And if you take for the architecture, right? So if you go for this elastic optical networks, it is supporting, why we are using for this one is the support of this OFDM technology here, right? Orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. So in orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, we can send the carrier signals, right? Neighboring carrier signals here, and these neighboring carrier signals can be overlapped on each other here, but the spacing, we have to see that the two signals should be orthogonal to each other here. So due to that technology that has been established here, we can transmit the data in very lesser space itself here. So this is the architecture where you can see we're having the control plane, and this is the data plane here. So in this data plane, almost we can expect the components of the elastic optical networks when you propose the architecture here. So that architecture components can be introduced in this data plane here, and in control plane we can go for designing for the switching, routing, and that one will be present in the control plane itself here, right? So we require the hardware, right? Hardware and the subsystems here, where we can tune it for the center frequency and try to elastically adapt to that bandwidth of the system here. So for that one, the orthogonality has to be maintained here. So this is the technology architecture which has been supporting for elastic optical networks. So now let me go quickly. So this is the concept here, why we are going for this elastic optical network, and because it has been changed, right? It is changed from fixed grid to flexi grid, and this flexi grid networks has been changed to the it has been giving rise to the slice architectures here. So now let me go for the slice architecture and the switching technologies present here. Now if you see this figure, right, in the we can see this figure, all of them here, right? So this is the elastic optical networks, EONS. The other name is given for that one is EONS here. So slice, spectrum sliced elastic optical networks, that is the slice network here. The other name given here is also the flexigrid dense WDM network, FGWDM, and all these are the different names provided for the slice network itself here. So this all uses what? OFDM technology, right? It uses OFDM technology here, and it supports, right? It supports the 100 Gbps data rate itself and above the 100 Gbps here. And there are a few characteristics, right? There are a few characteristics for this slice architecture here. One is the sub wavelength, right? Super wavelength here. In sub wavelength, what we are segmenting, right? We are segmenting the data rate of 100 Gbps to 60 and 40, and then transmitting here, and different data rate we can take from the higher multi data rate. We can it has been supporting itself here, and segment this one is segmentation here, right? So where we try to combine it, right? Combine it, aggregation, we call it as aggregation here. Combine 200 Gbps paths itself and transmit in the form of super wavelength here, which is of 200 Gbps here. So you can see it here, right? These are the characteristics. One is sub wavelength segmentation here, right? And the second one is aggregation here, where we are combining the optical paths and for effective utilization, and we are accommodating the segmentation process here for efficient utilization of the resources. And last one is the multiple data rate here. So various data rates it will be supporting, and the flexibility will be obtaining in the spectrum assignment here. So this one is slice architecture here, right? In slice architecture, what we are having the end users, and at each of the switches, right? We call the switches as what? Bandwidth variable transponder here, and we have the cross connects here, right? So BVT is nothing but the bandwidth variable transponder, and this one is the bandwidth variable wavelength cross connects here that has been present at each of the network nodes itself here. So this is one mesh network here, right? So due to this flexibility, what happens? We can allocate the spectrum and go for the data rate itself, lower the signals, right? Lower the signals itself. Bit disturbance. Just 1 second. Can mute yourself? Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. So this is the architecture of the slice here. So if we take this bandwidth variable transponder here, what is the main function of this transponder is what? We for the varying bit rate, right? If you want to transmit this varying bit rate transmissions here, so we have to choose the different modulation techniques that is being provided here. So what are the different modulation formats? I already discussed here. One is 16 QAM, another one is 64 QAM here. So if we take this QAM here, 16 and 64 QAM, we can use it for shorter like paths itself here, but which is of high speed and efficient here. But when you go for the longer distances, what happens? The spectrum efficient QPSK and DPSK modulation formats can be used itself here. So if there are some impairments, right? Impairments here, like if suppose if you used higher speed bandwidth model BBTS here, if you make it them to work in lower speed, then what happens? We will not be utilizing this transponders efficiently here. For that one, the sliceable bandwidth, right? SBVT, that is the sliceable bandwidth variable transponder, is been proposed here. So if we take this bandwidth variable transponder, what happens? So for the traffic demand, it will be directing only for the single destination here using our RODM itself here. So only single variable, right? Single variable bandwidth optical flow will be present here. But when you go for this sliceable, right? If you go for this sliceable bandwidth variable transponder here, will be diverting the traffic from single to the multiple destinations here. So in this way, we have here single and multiple variable bandwidth the optical flow will be established here. So not only for one path, for different paths will be supporting by this SBVT itself here. So this is one figure I would like to present for you all here. This is the optical transport network here, right? In optical transport network, in the physical, if you take it for the physical layer here, or in optical, in OFDM optics method here, if you use any of these methods, either in electrical approach here or in optical approach here, how would be the transponder, right? The bandwidth variable transponder will be represented here. So if we take this optical transport unit here, we have the overhead here, right? We are having the PDU, right? So in this PDU here, for this, if you want to contain, right? If you want to encapsulate that one here, encapsulate with the encapsulate that PDU and transmit that one using the K value. So what does this K value indicate here is if you want to transmit the data here, right, for different data rates, right? So suppose here the demand is asked for only 10 Gbps. So no need to transfer it for 40 Gbps here. So what we have to do, I'll take the value of K equal to 1 here. So if I take the value of K equal to 1, then automatically it will select for the still finer or precise transmission of the data here, like 2.5 Gbps here. Now suppose if the data traffic demand is taken for 10 Gbps, then select the value of K equal to 2 here. So when I select the value of K equal to 2, then automatically what happens, 10 Gbps will be selected here. So that modulation will be utilized and we will be able to transmit here. So this value of K, right, the value of K will indicate here what type of modulation data rate you want to select here, and using that modulation data you can transmit here. So this is the with respect to the electrical approach here. So where we have to use inverse FFT or inverse DFT in case of the transmitter here, right, and go for the modulation and then get the output here. But when you go for in the OFDM here method here, then automatically if you want to have the complete optical domain, go for the optical coupler, modulation and tunable optical subcarriers itself here. So like this for different, right, for different protocol data units here, we can attach the payload itself and see that these subcarriers, right, the see that the subcarriers are being presented in each of the slot here and transmit itself here. So in this way, the transmitter is being present here. This is nothing but the slice transponder transmitter model itself here, right? So like this, we can have the architecture of transponder model here. And now coming to the SBVT architecture here. So what does the SBVT architecture supports here? So if I take this is the client traffic demand that is being used here. So we have to see that it is being processed here, perform the switching, right? And we have to allocate the subcarriers for that one here, right? Allocate the subcarriers for the different traffic demand that is being present here. So for each of the subcarriers, try to allocate the traffic here. And when you allocate the traffic here, this architecture should also provide the sliceability here, right? It has to provide the sliceability, the multiple bit rates here and multiple modulation techniques here, and the switching, right? The switching and processing unit here should also be presented here, right? And the different modulation techniques, right, which I showed in the previous figure here. So it has to support the multiple modulation techniques like 16 QAM or QPSK here. So all that one is been assumed that it has been present in this PIC, right? Where it will be used for routing of all the datas here. So we combine, right? So all the subcarriers here that is been allocated for the traffic demand that is being present here. So the subcarriers will be allocated for the traffic demand, and these will be multiplexed, right, using my optical multiplex here, and they will be directed to the specific ports itself here. So like that we'll be transmitting here. And we have this one, right? We have this cross connect here, right? If you see this figure, we are having the splitters at the end input side and bandwidth variables selective switches at the output side itself here. So where the splitters, what they will do, they try to generate the replicas of the input itself here, and it will be filtered by spectrum selective switches itself, and for the desired signal we'll be able to get at the output line here. So we are using bandwidth variable transponder here, right, at the BBT here, and they try to switch from the input side to the output side here. And one more type of node here, right? This is about the cross connect here. We'll be having three types of architectures proposed in elastic optical networks here. One is the slice node architecture here, which in that slice node architecture we have the first type of architecture is known as the broadcast and select architecture here. So where we have the input, at the input side we have the splitters here, but at the output end we have the spectrum selective switches, and we can add and drop the networks here with the elasticity. So either you can add one or two wavelengths or drop one or two wavelengths here for the existing demand itself. Based on that one, we can transmit the data at the each of the node here. So this is for broadcast and select here. But when you go for the second type of architecture in spectrum routing architecture here, so we have at the input and output side both the spectrum routing, spectrum selective switches here are both the inputs. So when you use this type of architecture, what happens? The cost, right? The cost of this architecture will be more here, and the additional functionalities will not be implemented using this type of architecture here. So that is why we go for the third type of architecture here. So in the third type of architecture, what happens? That is known as a switch and selective architecture here. So in this one, we'll have at the input side we have the splitters, and at the output side we have the spectrum selective switches here, and we have this function modules here, right? So you can see at the output of the architecture here, right? So we have this function modules here. So these function modules, they are being used to provide the additional functionalities here, right? So they provide the additional functionalities here. So where for that additional functionality, it will be selected and perform to the switch additional count to like optical switches, selecting for the switch port itself here, like generation, spectrum defragmentation, time multiplexing. So all these will be done in this third architecture itself here. This is the, and add and drop networks will also be present in this type of the architectures here. So here Bijoy, right? Bijoy Chand is the author here, right? He has published many papers. So he has proposed on book also, right? In elastic optical networks, he has proposed this type of architectures for elastic optical networks itself here, right? But when you go for this architecture of this elastic optical networks here, then automatically one thing you have to keep it here is if we go for a complete replacement of all the components, right? So I want to change it from WDM networks to elastic optical networks. Means what I had to do, I had to replace all the components. So you had to remove all the existing components and replace with the bandwidth, the variable transponder, bandwidth variable cross connects, and sliceable bandwidth variable transponder, and so on here. So then automatically what happens, all these backhaul networks, right? All the backhaul networks that has been already placed here, right? They are already placed here. They won't go for that type of architecture here. So then what happens for the complete change of technology? it's not been supporting here, then automatically what happens? The architecture on demand, right? This came into more demand. This came into the existence here. That is architecture on demand here. So instead of changing the complete optical backplane here, let us change few of the components here. So let us maintain the EFDA as it is, right? Amplifiers as it is here, and other signal modules here, the optical switches as it is. But let us introduce in that one some spectrum selective switches and splitters here, and try to have n number of ports, p number of 1 to p number of ports here, and introduce some functional modules here. So for the optical backplane here, flexibility, right? Much flexibility is being provided for this architecture here, like non-mandatory, like all the components need not be removed here, because it's a when you want to replace a complete architecture here, then the cost plays a vital role. For the cost efficient, this type of architecture is being more demand here for this n number of inputs and other outputs here. We try to introduce, connect all these components to the optical backplane itself here. So this is the for the different node architectures. This is the comparison here, like broadcast and select here, spectrum routing, and switch and select with dynamic functionality architecture on demand here. If you see it here, so if we have the port count will not be present here, but we have P here, but we have N and P itself here. Flexibility, this is high flexible when compared to all other type of architectures here, right? Regenerations is also been provided here. Port count is been provided here, right? And the losses is been very much lesser here, right? So that is why the architecture on demand for elastic optical networks came into existence itself here. So let us go for the next type of architecture here, next subheading here, that is the slice network virtualization. In slice network virtualization, what happens? We have to see, right, when you go for virtualizing the slice networks here, so we have to represent all the resources in each of the domain here. So here we can see, right, this is the physical layer, in substrate management layer, and virtual network layer here. So in physical layer, we have the optical switches and nodes here, and resource orchestra will form a medium between this virtual network and the physical layer itself here. And in substrate management layer, you have the three layers here, right? One is utility control plane, resource architecture, and optical control plane itself here. So the optical nodes, right? Optical nodes and switches where we have here, right? So they are being used for computing, storaging, switching at the subcarrier level here. And when you go for the next one here, if you want to manage the resources, right? If you want to manage the resources, go for the utility control plane here. And if you want to control for switching, routing, and management of spectrum resources, go for the optical control plane itself here. And in order to coordinate between the three resources here, our resource orchestra has been present here. So this is the virtual network layer here. So where OBDE will act as a bridge, right? Bridge between the virtual and substrate networks itself here, right? This is about the architecture of the elastic optical networks. Let me go for the RSA, that is routing and spectrum allocations here. So in routing and spectrum allocations here, when you go for this RSA here, we can take this problem as the allocation of the subcarriers here for the corresponding routes that has been established between the spectrum paths here. So first, now what happens here, when you want to allocate the spectrum for this one, first we have to do the routing between the source to destination, and then allocate the spectrum here. So first we have to go for the routing decision here, and after the routing decision is completed, then we go for the subcarrier allocations for that demands here. So how does it differ, right? How does it differ from RWA? So already I had taken a little bit of RWA here. So how this RSA differs from RWA here? So this RSA, right, if you take these transponders, right, OFDM transponders here, so they modulate the subcarriers here, right? They modulate the subcarriers here in order to maintain the consecutiveness here. So consecutiveness has to be maintained between these two subcarriers here. So how it has been, how this consecutiveness has been depolarized. Now suppose here one wavelength lambda 1 is been transmitted here, lambda 2 is transmitted, right? So if I want to transmit, like let me take it here, this one is lambda 1, right? If I take this one is lambda 1 and lambda 2 here. So if I take this lambda 1, lambda 2 and lambda 3, so this is the three spectrum slots which I want to transmit here. So if I want to transmit this three spectrum paths from across a mesh network here. Like, let me take this one as the mesh network here, right? So I want to transmit this lambda 1, lambda 3 consecutive wavelength paths here from S to D. So if I want to transmit, then what happens? The wavelengths, right? The wavelengths should be neighboring to each other. They should not break it here. If they break here, then what happens? Then automatically the paths will be lost. So the consecutiveness between the wavelengths will be lost here. So when it is lost, then automatically what happens? We are not transmitting the spectrum here, right? So the combination, right? The combination of n number of wavelength pack is nothing but the spectrum allocations here, right? But in case of the RWA, what happens? Only single wavelength will be transmitted here. But here, if you take the complete wavelengths here, right? We can call it as the slots here. So this consecutive, right? Three requests are there. So these three requests has to travel at the same neighboring itself and then reach the destination here. So like this, the consecutiveness constraint will come into picture when you go for this RSA itself here, right? And these subcarriers, right? When you transfer the subcarriers here, they will be partially overlapped here because of this OFDM technology. So if I take this one, right? So this is the one subcarrier here, right? Then automatically what happens? The peak of the first subcarrier will be the 0 for the second subcarrier here, right? So like this, the second subcarrier will be allocated and transmitted here. So what happens in OFDM technology, when you want to allocate this subcarriers here, so like this, they will be overlapped here, right? They will be overlapped here, and there will be no cross modulation between these two subcarriers here, because they will be placed orthogonal to each other itself here. So they will be partially overlapped here, and we have the separate, suppose here, right? Suppose if you want to transmit these subcarriers here, one or more subcarriers have been transmitted, and if you want to, right, if you want to choose, this is one set of subcarriers, if you want to select for another set of subcarriers for the second connection, then also we can go for the guard carriers. So we can go for the guard carriers and transmit also here. Now, if you want to understand still more easily, right, about the RSA here, right, I explained with respect to theory portion here. But if you take one example, it will be very nice here for RSA here. Let me consider here. Let me consider this one as one bandwidth variable cross connect here. At the node itself here for the slice star network here. So here I'm having, right, for between each of the nodes I'm having 2 fibers per link, right? So this is F1 and this one is F4, F2 and F5, F3 and F6. So for each of the fiber, 2 links will be there. One is the primary and another one is the backup path here. And we'll try to use, right, we'll try to use guard carrier as only one guard carrier here. Now what happens if I take the spectrum path SP1, right? If you see this SP1 here, we are having for the spectrum path FE1 2 subcarriers here, right? 2 subcarriers will be allocated between A and B, and 1 subcarrier, right? If I take SP2, we'll be having 1 subcarrier between A to C. So if I take the link, right, this is F1, right? If I take for the fiber F link here, how many spectrum slots will be used here, right? So if I see it here, this is the subcarrier number here. So you can see it here, MS. So what is this MS here? This is the subcarrier index number here, right? So this should be lesser, right? So if I'm having for the fiber F1, what happens? I'm having 2 spectrum paths here, SP1 and SP2. 2 subcarriers are being allocated here. But when I use it for the second connection, right? For the second connection, for the second spectrum path SP2 here, then I cannot introduce directly here. I require 1 guard carrier between these 2 here. So GC will be equal to 1 here, and 1 more spectrum path is being allocated here. So how many subcarriers totally is used by F1 here? So 1, 2 and 3. So MS value will be equal to how much? 4 here. So 1 subcarrier, 3 spectrum paths. Totally how many subcarriers here? 4 is being used here. So this value, right, the value of MS should be reduced here. So when you go for a single network, it is well and good. But when you go for huge networks here, you have to see this MS value is been reduced itself here. So that is what it is being given here. So in ILP formulation, try to see this MS, right, subcarrier index number to be minimized here. So this is the objective function for RSA here. So in RSA, what happens? The main objective function is try to reduce it. Right, try to reduce this maximum subcarrier number here for each of the connections that is being established for elastic optical networks itself here. So for this one, if I take the second value here, minimize this value of MS itself here, and if this value, right, V of IO, if I take it for fiber I to 0, in that fiber from source to destination here, and for the omega subcarrier number here, if this value is equal to 1 here, then automatically there is a light path here. If this value is 0, then automatically there is no light path here, right? And here, if you take this number here, IN, right? We are having this IN value here. So this IN value will also indicate, right? It also indicate here whether the set of nodes is coming from the incoming fiber or the outgoing fiber. So this is for the outgoing fiber, and this one is for the incoming fiber itself here, right? So here, when this equation, right? This equation indicates that the light path, right? You cannot take each the same node as the source node as well as the destination node here. So we have to make, right? We have to see that the source node is been and the destination node is been different itself here. For that one, we will be using it and try to reduce for the complete fibers. For the overall networks here, try to reduce this maximum subcarrier index number itself here, right? So here, this is the equations here. So where we add, right? So it indicates that we are adding the traffic here at the source node itself and obtain it at the destination node only here, right? So this is our ILP formulation for RSA here. So there are many constraints here. In the RWA, we have taken only two constraints here. One is wavelength continuity and another one is the distinct continuity here. But here in RSA, we have more number of RSA this one constraints here. One is the traffic demand, another one is the subcarrier capacity here and continuity here. So here, if you take it for right the equations, previous equations, what I had given here, in that one, the traffic demands, right? If for the node and pair, it should be added at node S and dropped at node D itself here. And for one light path, only one subcarrier has to be allocated, which has been provided in this equation here, right? In this equation, and the continuity, right? The same spectrum should be used here for the complete route path here, right? And for the guard carrier, right? For the guard carrier, if there is since there is a partial overlapping of the spectrum paths, if you want to separate the spectrum slices, go for the guard carrier itself here, right? And if the consecutiveness, so you have to maintain the consecutiveness in the subcarriers itself here. So all these constraints has to be maintained in case of the routing and spectrum allocations here. Now let me go for the next here explanation for contiguity and continuity constraints here. So what is the difference here? Like consecutiveness. Consecutiveness, what I have taken is nothing but here is termed as contiguity here, right? Now here, let me take it here. I'm having the connection request here established between 1, 2 and 4, right? Let me take this 1, 2, 4 here. And these are the slots that have been present here, right? 1, 2, 6 and 8 here for the link 1, link 2, link 3 and link 4. So two spectrum slots, right? So here, if I take it here, we are having two spectrum slots here. So two should be maintained consecutive, right? And these two consecutive slots has to be transmitted, right? This has to be transmitted for the complete path itself here, right? How do you transmit here, right? So if I choose link 1 and 2, what happens? I don't see any, these are the blocked one, right? So I don't see any free paths itself here. So where it is free, if I use only, excuse me, if I use link 1 and 4, I cannot see two slots. If I use this slot 5 and 6, here it is already blocked here, so I cannot use it here, right? So then what happens? Link 1 to 4 is being blocked. I cannot use that connection itself here. So if I go for second set of connection like link 1, 2 and 3, then what happens? In link 1, right? So this is link 1 here. So I can use this two slots here. And if I take the second one is link 2, I can use these two slots. And if I say link 3, I can use these two slots here. But here what happens? If I use link 1 here, right, I can use link 1 and I have to go directly for link 4 here, right? So there is no continuity here, or almost here the slot is being blocked. I cannot use it here. But here two contiguous slits are being slots are being continuously transmitted from node 1 to 4 here, right? So that's why the path chosen is 1, 2, 3 and 4. So, and these two slots should be contiguous, right? They should be continued and the contiguity has to be maintained here. That's the constraint for RSA itself here, for spectrum allocation here. There are different types of, right? If you go for this RSA problem here, there are different types of problems that has been present here, which is also termed as what? Variants, right? Variants of routing and spectrum allocation here. So in variants of routing and spectrum allocation, I had taken here two types here. One is online and offline, which has been present in the literature here. So in offline, what happens? in offline RSA, already we know the traffic demand, right? We know the traffic demand, and for that traffic demand known in advance, we try to solve the problem as RSA here, routing and spectrum allocations here. So when you go for this offline RSA here, we'll be having two types here, right? So I had just taken this one from spectrum management techniques by Sahir Taiba. So where they had summarize the different types of variants of RSA problem here. So in that one, they had summarized for both, right? One is for link based, another one is for the path based itself here. So in link based and path based ILP formulations here, so we can go for SPSR and VLSI algorithm. My work is mostly mainly based on this SPSR and VLSI algorithm. We'll try to see it later here. And there are a few other authors here where they had worked in RWSA, right? Routing, wavelength, and spectrum allocation. So simultaneously they had done it here. So this is a link based, right? It is a link based solution for RSA itself using offline method here, right? And another set of authors, what they had done, they had go for path-based ILP also. So where the type of problem taken here is path-based here. So adaptive frequency assignment with collision avoidance and decomposition of two formulation, like solving the problem into two sections here. One is routing section, and the one is the spectrum assignment section here. So like that, right? Respectively, they had taken and solved, right? Different literature they have solved it using this method itself here. So in online RSA, what happens? This is with respect to the offline, right? Which is nothing but the static demand. We can also call it as a static demand here, right? In online RSA, this is a dynamic here. So here, when you want to allocate the spectrum here, right? Allocate the spectrum here, the type of demand can be either static here or dynamic. So both can be used. So in static demands, we can go for offline method here, but in online demand, it is a dynamic traffic itself here. So here it is based on the client request, right? As the client requests arrive, try to allocate the spectrum in random fashion itself here. So here we can, this problem has been addressed in two ways here. One is using two-step algorithm, another one is using one-step algorithm here. So where we are taking that problem as a two sub-problems here. One is a routing problem, another one is spectrum assignment problem here, and they are solved sequentially. But if you take it here in one-step algorithm, simultaneously two problems are being solved here. So different works, right? If you take it in literature, different works has been done here using for the online RSA or going for offline RSA method here. Now, let me go for the next allocation here, right? How the spectrum is been allocated. So I told you, right? I told you in the routing algorithms, there are plenty of routing algorithms came into picture here into the literature for elastic optical networks. So I had summarized here, summarized to a few in online and offline RSA where it has been done here. But in spectrum allocations, right? In spectrum allocations here, the spectrum allocation for the connection groups is done in three methods here. One is the fixed spectrum allocation, semi-elastic and elastic spectrum allocation here. So in fixed allocation spectrum, what happens? The center frequency is fixed and the number of slots is also fixed. So the spectrum is fixed here, center frequency is fixed, right? Now, if the demand is this much only, so I'm taking only 4 slots, right? If you see this figure, only 4 slots is used and this is the center frequency. So along with the center frequency, only 4 slots are used, 2 slots are being unused here. So right, this is the fixed frequency here, and this when we have the lesser traffic demand. Now suppose if the traffic demand is more, then what happens? Only this much is allocated to you, and we are insufficient, right? This indicates what? An insufficient spectrum slots which has been shortage itself. This is called as the fixed spectrum allocation, which was used in RW analysis in WDM networks itself here. But when you go for the semi-elastic spectrum allocations, what happened? Center frequency will be fixed here. You can see it here. The center frequency is fixed, but the number of slots will be varying, right? The number of slots will be varying here based on the traffic demand. If the traffic demand is very less, only 4 slots is required for this demand here. So then what happens? Only 4 slots is allotted here. So here, how much here? 8 slots. So here we are allocating 8 slots, but the center frequency will remain same. So we have this semi-elasticity, right? We are having this semi-elasticity here where the center frequency is fixed, but the slots is being flexible here. But when you go for complete elastic spectrum allocation, then what happens? We can move this center frequency, right? We can move the center frequency here, and we can also move the complete shift the center frequency. Once we are able to complete the change the center frequency here. We can change from this slot to here and here to here itself here, right? But within the range, right? If you want to move in that complete elasticity also, we can move this center frequency within the range here, and this one is completely shifted from one slot to other slot itself here. So what happens within this range, you are able to move it here, and for the traffic demand of 4, you are able to allocate in this range itself here, right? But here in complete elasticity, what happens? You are completely reallocating the channel spectrum here. So this channel spectrum is been allocated here, right? And this channel spectrum is allocated here. Then what happens? We have the complete flexibility in allocating the spectrum. Then automatically the wastage of bandwidth will be completely reduced in elastic spectrum allocations here, right? So here, when you go for the spectrum allocation methods here, right, I had taken few of the algorithms here, like I can see it here, right? First fit, right, I had implemented this one, random fit and exact fit itself here, and try to see the blocking probability for that one, how many spectrums are used, and we had analyzed that one here. And for that one, I had taken this one figure here, which completely explains the different algorithm here. Now, let me take this example here, right? So I'm having two connection requests here. I'm having two connection requests here, and I'm using link 2 and 3 only, right? For the two connection requests, what I'm doing here, for this two connection requests here, arrived here, try to use link 2 and 3. Link 2 and 3 here, right? So these are the link 2 and 3, right? So I'm using link 2 and 3 here, right? And with one slot demand for establishing the line paths here, right? So for this, in one slot only, we had to try to send it here, right? So if I use this link 2 and 3, right? If I use first fit algorithm here, then what happens in the first fit algorithm, whichever comes the first, so it will choose that one here in that algorithm. So what happens? It will choose slot 2 here, right? It will choose slot 2 and try to fit it here, right? But if I take the first to last fit algorithm here, right? So it will take for the first connection, it will choose slot 2 only, but for the last fit, it will choose slot 12 here, right? But if I take for the most used spectrum, if I take it here, the most used spectrum is slot 6, where you can see it here, right? This is the most used here, and another one is the slot 4 here. So in that most used also, you have to see that this link 2 and 3 is free, right? So I cannot take this slot 10 here, right? Slot 10 cannot be chosen here because this is not free here. So in this one, which is available free here, though the other slots is already used here. So link 4, right? Slot 4 and slot 6 are being most used spectrum here. So this one, right? Slot 4 is used for first connection and slot 6 is used for the next connection itself here. And in this one, which is most least used here, then automatically slot 2 is most least used here. And if I take for the next one is 9 here. So these two are least used here. So then automatically what happens for the first connection, it will choose slot 2. For the next connection, it will choose slot 9 here, right? But random fit, what happens? It will just scan it, directly go for 2 and 3 only. It will not go for any other this one. So it will go for the any 2, it will choose either slot 2 or 3 or slot 4 or 12, right? Anything it will choose which has the equal probability and try to allocate the spectrum allocation here. In exact fit, what it will do? It will choose first one, right? If you see here, the other slots already filled here. So this will fit exactly here. So that's why in exact fit, it will choose slot 6 for first connection here and then come for slot 2 itself here, right? So like this, we have the different spectrum allocation algorithms here. So I told you already, right, in online RSA here, I had offline RSA, we had taken SPSR algorithm here. So where we had used the Dijkstra algorithm here. So for the source to destination pair, right? For the matrix demand that is being allocated in the descending order here, for that one, the routing algorithm used is SPSR here, right? Where it chooses the spectrum or the path that has been already maximally reused itself here. And in that one, had proposed for 4 heuristic algorithms that is been present here, and the basic fit algorithm like best first fit, random fit, and exact fit. So that one also had been tried itself here. Right? So and one more type of algorithm, that is BLSA, that is balanced load spectrum allocation, is used here. In that one, we try to use try to find out the k shortest path using the Dijkstra algorithm here, generate the path here, and select the path based on the balance on the load here. So here we'll try to use the link here, right, which is already in the previous parts it has been using the same length here. So the allocation what we'll do, we'll try to use the maximum reuse spectrum allocation here. So whichever has been maximally reused here, that spectrum in that way we try to use it. So this number should be lesser here. So whichever the spectrum is been maximally used, try to reduce that one here and go for the next allocation here. So using that number, we'll try to allocate here in BLSA algorithm here. So these are the two algorithms what we had taken here. One is BLSA and the second one is the SPSR here, and tried for the first fit algorithms. Already I explained you the first fit algorithm here. So if I take for this is for the connection 1 and this is for the connection 2, right? For the first slot, try to allocate the number of slots here. For the first connection, three slots is allocated, and 2 slots for the connection 2 itself here, right? And we have taken these two already I explained. I'll not go in detail for this one here. And one more algorithm we had taken is the fragmentation for fragmentation aware RSA algorithm here. So here, if I choose the basic fit algorithm like first fit, random fit, exact fit, and so on, least fit, most used fit here. In that one, what happens? Few of the slots will be free, right? Like this, you can see it here. Few of the slots will be free. Then automatically, what happens? It leads to what? It leads to wastage of the bandwidth here. We have to use the allocation in such a way that the free slots is been reduced to the maximum number itself here. So this is the fragmentation problem here. So we can reduce this problem by using defragmentation technique here. So where we try to allocate the slots here, right? So whichever the slot, so this slot is been allocated here, right? Then these two slots have been allocated in this section here. So to see that the slots has been reduced, right? So we try to have free slots for the next allocation here. So the defragmentation techniques have been more coming to the picture here, right? And the allocation of the spectrum using this defragmentation has been more improvised itself here. So that also had taken here, which is a fragmentation aware RSA algorithm here. So using FA, right, which is also termed as FA here. So which is having the maximum fiber fragmentation for each path will be represented by the smaller value here, right? And this is the results what we obtained for SPSR, right? SPSR, we have tried it for the 6 nodes, 40 node networks here, and allocated for the 3 algorithms itself here. If you see it here, right, the random fit is having and first fit is having the blocking probability, but the exact fit is having the lesser blocking probability here. And we also tried it for BLSA algorithm here, routing algorithm for that one, right? So this is the blocking probability what we had obtained for the different requests here. This is for the 30 requests and this one is for the 182 requests here. Right? And later we had tried it for the fragment aware here, right? If you take this fragment here, the blocking probability is a little bit more here when compared to the other 2 algorithms here. And also we compared the 3 routing algorithms here, right? You can see the blocking probability will be more in case of the SPSR here. So BLSA has reduced here, but fragment aware is been working in between these 2 algorithms here, right? So this is one set of algorithms what we had tried it here, right? And later we had taken another 2 types of algorithm, that is MSCP and MKSP algorithm here. In MSCP algorithm, that is minimum subcarrier path here, right? So in that one we had taken the path, right? We had chosen the path here with the maximum subcarrier number here, right? So we use the least weight for that one here, right? And using that least weight which is assigned to each of the subcarriers here, try to find the shortest path here where this number is lesser here, right? And modified k shortest path also we had taken here, right? Using the same Dijkstra algorithm here, we are having a number of paths here, right? By taking the value of k equal to 1 or 2 itself here. For that one also we had obtained here, right? For k equal to 1, k equal to 2 and MSCP, and this work has been presented in RAP 2017 here, right? So for the demands for 8 node network and for 14 node mesh networks here, so you can see it here, right? The blocking, the number of spectrums, right? The number of spectrums utilized for these 3 routing algorithms, you can see the number here, right? One more algorithm also we had tried it here, that is genetic algorithm here, right? So I'll go quickly for the next algorithm, still we had to discuss still more here. So here we had used the fitness function for the genetic algorithm here, right? So we're using the different encoding methods, right? Different encoding methods for the candidate solutions here. based on the generation of for different iterations here, based on the generations that has been evolved here for the fitness functions here, new generations for the individual probability has been existed here. So for that solution, right, which has been applied for the different procedures like mutation, crossover, inversion, is been applied here for the genetic algorithm here. And we had taken this for RSA, for solving this RSA problem, we have taken this genetic algorithm using priority based encoding here. So where I'll not go for the mathematical equations here. I'll just explain the concepts in detail. So here in genetic algorithm, the roots can we'll try to go for the different iterations here, try to optimize the path here, but going for the priority based encoding here. So where the different nodes, right, will be given some priority random values here. So for if I take for node 1, priority value will be given to this one is 7, and for this one is 2 is 3, and 3 is for 4 here. So this is having the highest priority, so it will choose a path 1, 2, 3. And if I take for 6, 5 and 2, 6 is having the highest value. So based on the priority values, the route will be chosen from source to destination is 1, 3, 6, 7, 8 and 10 here. So based on that, the routing will be performed here. In order to execute that genetic algorithm here, we have taken the Bealy function in MATLAB here, so which is represented by this equation here, which is where the value of x is taken between minus 4.5 to 4.5, and the tolerance value obtained by this Bealy function is around very much lesser here, and we tried it for around 1000 iterations here, where the tolerance value is very much lesser here. So using that one, we had applied it for the NSF topology here, right, for k equal to 1 and for k equal to 5 here, and we can see, right, we can see in the blocking probability value, right, so which has been very much for the k equal to 1 here. So this value, right, the blocking probability is very much less at 2.7 10 to the power of -3 for 500 along traffic itself here, and it was still a bit lesser, right, for k equal to 5. It was around 1.8, where because if you take more paths, automatically what happens, the probability will be still more reduced itself here. So this work I had presented in Tamil Nadu ICET, right? And this is one optimizing method used for USFNet and Usenet and NSFNet topology. We had tried it here. Now coming to the next algorithms, what I have worked it here, the 4 heuristic algorithm. For that 4 heuristic algorithm, we have taken the fragments, right? We have taken the fragments and the slots here. So usually we call the subcarriers in the form of the slots itself here. So each slot is taken for the frequency of 6.25 gigahertz here, and fragment sizes. So since we are taking for each fragment has 10 slots here, so this will be taken as 1 slot here, and each fragment will be having 10 slots here. So fragment size will be of 62.5 gigahertz here for the center frequency of 193.1 gigahertz. It has been taken here, and we have taken for the 4 heuristic algorithms here. So one is taken as the best fit algorithm. So if you take the demand here, right, 3, 8, 6, 11 and 3 and 6 here, how does the algorithm work here? So it will scan the complete slots here. It will scan the complete slots and try to allocate as the first come basis, which will be best suited here. So for the first demand, it will take 3 here, right? And it will not, after that it will go for the second fragment here, where it will choose 8 here in F2, and next it will go for F3 here, select for the 6 here, 11 it is greater than 10 here, so then automatically it will be discarded here. If you see here, between 3 and the for next connection, 1 guard carrier is been used here, right? And after that the 3, right? So when it wants to allocate the 3 demand here, traffic demand 3, then it will scan from the beginning and go for F1 only here. And next, once it scans for the beginning here, it has to go for 6 itself here. So sorry, it will go for the F5 here, because already F3 is full. It has to go for F5 itself here. And these are the block one. The complete dark one is nothing but the block here. So like this, in best fit algorithm, whichever is best suited, it will try to choose the slots itself here. So this is the algorithm. I'll not go much for the algorithm. Directly I'll go for the concepts here. But in next best fit, what happens? It will perform the same way as the best fit algorithm here. But only thing is the scanning will be done where it has stopped here. It will not go for the beginning here. So in that way, what happens? It will go for the 3 for first one. 3 is gone for F1, 8 will go for F2, 6 will go for F3, right? 11 will be discarded here. Next 3, it will go for F5 here. Instead of going to F1, it will go for F5 here, and 6 will go in F5 by placing one guard carrier here. So the next bit means where it has stopped here, it will continue from there in the next best fit algorithm here. So this is the algorithm here. And in worst fit, what happens, whichever is available, it will try to choose that one here. 3 is for F1, 8 is for F2, 6 is for F3, and 3 is for F5, and F6 will be utilized here. So randomly it will just fit it for the allocation here. And the next type of algorithm which I had taken is using this golden section interleaver here. So in golden section interleaver, we had taken one segment here. So here we'll divide more than half that segment here. So the value is taken as G here and 1 minus G. The other slot is taken as 1 minus G here. So here one longer segment G and another shorter segment is taken as 1 minus G here. And we'll take the ratio of this entire segment here, right, in the form of G by 1 to 1 minus G minus 1 here, and solve this equation where you'll get this value as 0.618 here. So using that, then what happens, if I take for the same traffic demand here, if the value of G is taken, right, if I take the value of G here, it is around 0.61 here. So automatically what happens, it will take the first slot, right, it will go for the slot here F1, right. So for the first demand, if the value is taken here, then it will choose between F1 to F6 only, because the value of the G is taken as 6 itself here, right. Then if you want to choose the next algorithm here, right, if I take the value of next value, if I choose the value of next value here, then automatically it will take G square here. Now instead of G, it will take G square here. So if you take the G square value, then automatically it will be around 0.38 some value here. Then it will go for the first bit itself here. So it will select the section here, first half the section, it will try to allocate the 3 value here, and F6 it will take it in this section here, right, because of the value of G. Next, if I take G cube, which will be almost equal to G cube will be almost equal to 10 here, right, which will be around almost equal to 2. So then it will go for F2, right. So it will go for, since the value of G cube will be almost equal to 2, it will go for F2 itself here, right. Here it will be allocated. If I take G4, then what happens? It will go for, it will indicate it for F1 only here. So once it is indicated to F1, 11 will be discarded here. So 3 will be allocated here. The next 6 will be discarded here, because further if you go on select here, the value of G will be reduced to 1 only, approximated to value of 1 here. So then since F1 is not having a more number of free slots, then blocking probability for this gold fit will be more itself here, right. So this is the algorithm, and these are the analytical relations. I'll not go further for this analytical for spectrum allocations we have taken. Let me go quickly to the results itself here. So we had tried it for BLSA SPSR algorithm here with the guard carrier taken as 1, 2, and 3. You can see it here. So if you see it here, right, the number of subcarriers used is more for SPSR here, right, when compared to all other algorithms here, right. So if you take SPSR, right, this is the way for the different traffic demand here, the maximum number of subcarriers utilized is being provided here, right. And for the BLS algorithm, right, the BLS algorithm also which we had taken here, for the each of the link load, right, for the each of the link ID, how the allocation is being done is been represented here itself here, right. For the both we had taken for 40 node as well as for the 6 node network here, right. So this is for the random demand. That one, those the previous 2 results are for the constant demand which we had taken, and later we had taken for the random demand also, and seen here, right, for the random demand almost the number of subcarriers used is very much lesser for the guard carrier 1 here, but for guard carrier 2 and 3 little bit of more allocations has been done here. So the SPSR more number of spectrum has been allocated here. So this is for the heuristic for algorithm, that is best fit, the next best fit, worst fit, and gold fit here. This is the blocking probability what we obtained here, right. So you can see, right, the blocking probability has been almost initially 0, but as we go on increase the demand, the blocking probability is more in case of the gold fit here when compared to the other 2 algorithms here. But if you go for BLSA routing algorithm here, the blocking probability for the next best fit was more here. But in case of 14 node network, it was more for the gold network itself here, right. So this is what we had used here. This is the link utilization that is being present for the spectrum demand itself here. You can see it here, right? BLSA worst fit, right? So BLSA worst fit was using more spectrum and compared to all other algorithms itself here, right? And this is here we had taken for link utilization here and taken for the fragments here, fragment utilization, how we had done it for the different algorithms here, and the subcarrier levels also, right? The subcarrier or the slot level allocation that is being done here. You can see it here, right? So for BLSA worst fit and BLSA next best fit itself. For that two algorithms, best fit algorithm. So for these two, the number of slots used has been little bit more here in case of the 14 node network here. So this is the comparison what we had done here for the link utilized, fragment utilized, and subcarrier utilized. So this is the number used for the different utilization of for different algorithms here. And I would like to conclude here, right? So we had discussed about the RWA, routing and wavelength assignment here, fixed and flexi-grid networks, right? How it is being used here, and the architecture, right? The architecture used for the elastic optical networks here, how it is been more cost effective, right? Services with the dynamic wavelength, dynamic allocation of the bandwidth here, the scalability, and the energy efficient services that is being used here. So it also had been highlighted on the spectrum allocation policies and the different routing algorithms like BLSA, SPSR, and MSCP, MKSP, and one more type of algorithm that is optimization algorithm like genetic algorithm using priority encoding here, and we had analyzed here, and a few spectrum allocation techniques used in slice architecture we had been taken here. And there one more thing I would like to highlight here is the challenges, right? I had not highlighted in the slides here, but I would like to go quick through this challenges that has been present in case of the in case of the elastic optical networks here. So if we take the challenges that have been already present is the component level, right? So what are the research we can carry out in this elastic optical networks is the hardware component level. So we have to go for developing this hardware level here, which would be more compact and cost effective here, right? Using MEMS technology, we can go for designing of bandwidth variable transponders or cross connects itself here. So different amplifiers, right? Different amplifiers which has been developed for the single core. So that is also is been more challenging itself here. So the design, right? The design of BBT, how it has to choose, right? So if I use BBT at each of the node here, how does it decide for the values of different modulation techniques used, right? So that would be a really challenge itself here. And if you go for the controlling, right, we have to go for the protocols here where it chooses open shortest path itself here, and generalized multi-protocol label switching here, and different protocols that have been already existing here. It has been used for the WDM networks here. But when you implement the same thing to the RSA, so what changes has to be done here? Still, right? Still, we have to see that the granularity in the allocation of the slots, like instead of going only for 10 gigahertz, let us go still more finer granularity like 3 gigahertz, right? 6.25 gigahertz or 12.5 gigahertz. So final granularity, if you are being maintaining in allocation of the slots, then automatically I think the bandwidth utilization can be more efficient here. So the available bandwidth, the C band is already fixed to you. We cannot change that one here. So in that C band itself here, because the lasers that have been working in that field and attenuation is very much lesser in this C band here, then automatically when you go for that one, the bandwidth is more crucial for us here. So we have to try to use the methods where we can use this bandwidth efficiently here and go for the impairments. Now I already discussed here, right? When you go for the different modulation techniques that is been already available here. So when these, when you go for this higher modulation techniques here, so what are the different impairments that will be available here? Non-linear impairments here, like the NOS effects, dispersion, chromatic dispersion effects here, cross space modulations here. So all this should be, it is already addressed in WDM networks, but how it is been addressed in case of the elastic optical networks here, and the coherent detection and DSP core algorithms, that is being developed here. So all that one will be a challenging, and these have been almost the research areas for elastic optical networks here. So when you use this, right, when you go for the grooming this traffic itself here in all optical domains, if you want to work it here, then automatically it will become little bit difficult here. So how we can establish in optical domain this elastic optical networks here, and whenever this SBVT, when you're using this SBVT here, so the flexibility that is being provided by this elastic optical networks here, so that one will also give rise to a future use itself here, like next future representation is being provided itself here. So here, this is about the conclusion of my talk it here, right? So these are the references I had taken for my talk itself here, right? For my work. So thank you. So audience side, if you have any questions, you can just come through.
Any questions from the participants? Ma'am, I think we can conclude, no?
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to thank all the participants for their patience hearing. And this is my short view of my research area, right? So hope so. At least you have been aware of this field and different work that is being done here. So thank you for your patience hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We thank Dr. Triveni CL for giving a wonderful session in our FTP. Hope all the participants have enjoyed the session. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Swati madam.
We shall join back at 11:45. Participants, take a break. We'll get back at 11:45 for the next session, in which we are going to have a presentation on practicing a healthy life. Thank you.